Helm to 108.
Helm 108!
Helm to 108. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons, monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Everest Plateau. And as you probably heard from the intro, this is episode 108.
That's right.
Brothers of the Serpent podcast. yeah. Podcast. So we got the
Sacred Podcast.
That's right. This is a sacred podcast. Episode 108 is a sacred number. So we got a great podcast coming up for you. But first, as always, we have space weather news from spaceweather.com, which I don't actually have pulled up yet.
But we were supposed to introduce the Watcher from space.
Yeah, we'll do that later. Where is it? There it is. What, Watcher?
I said I'm totally here.
Yeah, he is here. We've been watcherless for the past couple of shows, but he is here. Anyway, space weather. This is like totally messed up. The next solar wind stream. Earth is exiting one stream of solar wind. Another one is on the way. Estimated time of arrival, August 10th. The incoming stream is flowing from a southern hole in the sun's atmosphere. High latitude sky watchers should be alert for auroras mixed with Perseid meteors later this week. Also, these lights are not auroras. Around the world on August 5th, high-latitude sky watchers watched the sky turn red and green as a solar wind stream lashed Earth's magnetic field. A bunch of names that I cannot pronounce in Denmark saw these colors as well. But the strange thing was it was 3 days earlier and the geomagnetic storm had not started yet. On August 2nd, I went out to take some pictures of the Milky Way, says Merzkilov. When I took the first test shot, I was amazed by the brightness and the amount of airglow in the sky. It was both red and green. I can definitely say I've never captured such a bright green airglow. But that's right, these lights are not auroras, they are what's called airglow. Although airglow looks like the aurora borealis, it is not. Auroras are caused by gusts of solar wind. Airglow is caused by chemiluminescent reactions in Earth's upper atmosphere. These reactions get started during daylight hours when the atmosphere is bathed in strong UV radiation from the sun. At night, we see the afterglow colored green by oxygen atoms or sometimes red by hydroxyl ions. They are typically very faint and best captured on dark nights around the new moon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Camis.
All right, Watcher, come back on. What's going on, buddy? You've been saving lives. You're out there in deep space.
Yeah, working very hard.
Yeah.
Trying to hardly work and failing miserably.
Well, we sure do freaking miss you when you're not here. So hopefully we can get the schedules worked out.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Which
Trying to hardly work on it.
all the time now. So, but it'll get sorted out.
Yeah. So speaking of schedules and stuff, not this week, obviously, and not next week either, but at some point, I think the week after next, we are going to be changing our podcasting schedule to Mondays. So expect a new Brothers of the Serpent podcast to come out on Monday evenings instead of Wednesday evenings like they are right now. So that's the goal. All right. What do you got?
I have a sun probe update.
All right.
From CNET.com. Right now, there's a tiny little spacecraft zipping around the sun, moving faster than any other man-made object has ever flown. The spacecraft, known as the Parker Solar Probe, coined here on Snake Bros as Sun Probe,
Sun Probe,
is approaching the 1-year anniversary of its launch on August 12th, and it's been delivering some pretty stellar observations so far. After 2 flybys, Parker has been dumping data back to Earth for scientists to examine, and it's exceeding researchers' expectations. In a blog post on August 1st, researchers from Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, which designed and built the spacecraft, announced that the Parker Solar Probe had delivered 22 gigabytes of data after its second encounter with the sun finished up on May 6th, performing better than pre-launch estimates. The amount of data was 50% more than researchers previously expected to see. As we learn more about operating in this environment and these orbits, the team did a great job of increasing data downloads of the information gathered by the spacecraft's amazing instrument, said Nikolaus Kinney, a missions operator at JHAPL. After launch, Parker's controllers were able to maximize the way the data was downloaded and now expect to pull another 25 gigabytes of science straight off the little solar spacecraft that could between July 24th and August 15th. We've never had a probe this close to the sun, so the measurements that scientists on the ground are now evaluating have never been encountered before. Parker's 4 instruments are able to measure particles in the sun's atmosphere, its magnetic fields, the solar wind, and how electrons, protons, and ions are spilling out of the hot ball of plasma. The large cross-section of new data will greatly increase our knowledge about the sun and its effects across the entire solar system. The probe's next meeting with the sun will start on August 27th, and its closest approach will come on September 1st. On December 26th, it will fly by Venus for the second time, gathering speed as it prepares to cozy up to the sun in an even closer orbit.
Wow.
Touching the sun from 4 million miles away. Sun probe update. I got a bunch of stories here.
Oh, good. Yeah, I see. You got a stack of stuff.
I have a 4-page story here, folks, from the Wall Street Journal. Snakes! Snake bites hit record highs in Texas. Everybody knows why. I don't need to read that story. All right. FRBs. FRB FRB update. Mysterious deep space signals can now be picked up in real time. Over the past dozen years, scientists have been finding enigmatic fleeting signals called fast radio bursts, or FRBs, by poring over previous observations for the bright blips that come from the other side of the cosmos. Now, for the first time, the powerful flashes of radio waves have been picked up the moment they arrive at Earth. Doctoral student Wael Farah at Australia's Swinburne University of Technology developed an automated system that uses machine learning to capture FRBs in real time. The very first FRB was detected in 2007 with observations from 2001, and most other detections have also been made by reviewing data after the fact.
Yeah.
Exactly what FRBs are and where they come from remains one of the newest and most intriguing mysteries in space science. What we know is that they originate from very powerful sources on the other side of the universe. We're talking billions of light years from us, and last just milliseconds. Only a handful of FRBs so far have been observed to repeat themselves, a characteristic that makes them easier to trace to a source galaxy. Farah said, part of his motivation for studying FRBs is that they can be used to study the darker parts of the cosmos between galaxies that are otherwise almost impossible to see. It is fascinating to discover that a signal that traveled halfway through the universe, reaching our telescope after a journey of a few billion years, exhibits complex structure, like peaks separated by less than a millisecond, he said in a statement. Farah's system has been used at the Molonglo Radio Observatory in Australia and has already identified 5 FRBs, including one of the most powerful ever picked up and one of the broadest yet. The details have been published in the September 2019 issue of Monthly Notices of the Astronomical Society. The project team is hopeful that grabbing FRBs as they arrive will provide the clearest picture yet of the mysterious signals. Molonglo's real-time detection system allows us to fully exploit its high time and frequency resolution and probe FRB properties that were previously unobtainable, said project leader Matthew Bales. Possible explanations for FRBs range from powerful pulsars to advanced aliens. But now that we have artificial intelligence essentially locked in on their fleeting frequencies, the mystery is a step closer to eventually being solved.
All right.
And you should see this telescope.
The one they're using?
It's like a curved, like a concave curved plane. But it's rectangular, and it just, in the picture, it just goes off. Like,
wow.
And the whole, it's mounted like an old satellite dish, satellite telescope.
Yeah.
But it's this massive curved rectangle, just
wow.
extremely long, just running down this, I guess I don't know where it is.
Can they
in Australia?
Is it like articulatable? Like
I don't think
can
it
move it.
No, I think it just looks up and down. Like it can move.
So it's based on wherever it's on the Earth is like. So it's looking across the sky as it goes.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it even moves.
Yeah. Well, it's like
it looks like it could, move like change its axis.
Okay.
up and down.
Because there was a radio telescope, the one that heard the famous wow signal. Was a fixed telescope. It's like it was actually in the ground. And wherever it was looking just was wherever it was pointing based on the Earth's rotation in space.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where you figure out what you want to look at way in advance.
Yeah.
When it's going to be.
And then when it swings by, you get 72 seconds to look at it, basically.
Right. Yep. 72 months of planning.
That's right.
72 seconds of viewing. I got one more.
All right, good.
From Honolulu AP. Scientists have discovered that a growing pond of water inside a Hawaii crater is being heated by Kilauea volcano. The U.S. Geological Survey said Tuesday that temperature readings taken over the weekend show that a growing pool of water in Kilauea volcano's Halemauau crater, the former home of a popular lava lake, is about 158 degrees Fahrenheit, 70 degrees Celsius. So there was a previous story that I had bookmarked, but I found this is the most recent one.
Okay.
Basically, this massive lava lake that has been around since we've been observing, in I don't know, past 200 years or whatever,
right,
is now gone, and now water is forming in the caldera. For the first time in recorded history, the presence of water in the crater was confirmed last week. Since then, scientists have found two other small pools of water nearby. The crater floor collapsed about 2,000 feet, 610 meters.
Whoa.
And the lava lake disappeared last summer as Kilauea stopped erupting for the first time in over 30 years. USGS geologist Matt Patrick told the Associated Press on Tuesday that it's hard to determine how deep the magma chamber is beneath the bottom of the crater floor where the water was found. Quote, "I don't think it's possible to really determine too much about how deep the magma is below," Patrick said. "There's always a lot of gas coming through the surface, also a lot of sulfur output, so that is kind of heating it and mixing in with the water. One of the first things researchers hope to do is gather samples of the water so they can determine its composition and possibly better understand what's happening underground. The bottom of the crater, which has long been the main conduit for Kilauea's erupting lava, is now below the water table," officials said last week. "The area is inaccessible and dangerous because of pooling gases and other hazards, so researchers will likely use a helicopter to lower a bucket into the bottom of the crater to collect water samples," Patrick said. I wouldn't want to be that pilot.
Don't want to be that guy.
USGS geologist Janet Babb said observations made Tuesday show the water level continues to rise and the three ponds are starting to merge into one. A small pond was first spotted on July 25th, and the water has continued to rise since. In certain circumstances, underground magma interacting with groundwater can create explosive eruptions.
Yeah.
However, USGS researchers say an eruption is not imminent, and the public alert level for the volcano has not changed. Historically, Kilauea has gone through long periods of explosive phases that have lasted hundreds of years. The volcano then goes through phases of slower, so-called effusive eruptive periods. Kilauea has been in an effusive state for about 200 years. Geologists also took video of steam rising from the pond. USGS set up a webcam to monitor the water inside the Halemauau crater and will continue to make observations and watch for changes.
Wow. So it collapsed like
2,000
feet. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Right, so the watcher is saying the WOW signal was a strong narrowband radio signal received on August 15th, 1977 by Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope. Yeah, that's what it was called, Big Ear.
In the U.S.
Yep, which was then used to support the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And that signal has never been explained either. It could have been an FRB though. Like they didn't know about them back then. It could have swung past an FRB, and then the signal jumps in that particular band, and everybody's like, "Wow!"
Yeah, they're like, "Wow,
wow." So this is going to be a short segment. We only got a couple more minutes. We got some great emails, which I'll have to read either the next show or maybe at the end of this show. I don't know. But I do have a couple of comments I want to read here. They're comments from iTunes, from the iTunes ratings, right? So the reviews. So this one is called Serpent Lexicon Needed. This is from Corvus Flies. It says, these guys rock. Granted, I don't always agree with them, and sometimes it feels like what they're saying is coming out of, I don't know, their butt flaps. But they are clearly brilliant and terribly funny, and I love the topics they explore. I also think they need a written lexicon for those who are just discovering this podcast. I am on episode 44, still binging, so I think I've graduated to intermediate level. Some suggestions. Now he has some definitions here. Butt flap, a term which could be used when discussing Neanderthals, ancient ancestors, natives in the jungle. Slightly derogatory, but used with endearment. Skirp-derps. There is contention on the spelling of this word. Could be used in place of highly educated academics too afraid to lose their non-tenured job or respect of their peers to be real scientists and ask questions. There are so many more words that need defining for serpent noobs, but I am running out of room here. Well, Corvus, thank you so much for the great review, and you are in luck. When you get to like episode 46, we start going through the Snake Bros glossary, which we now have decided we need to call these Serpentcon or something, because your Serpent Lexicon is a way better name. So, yeah.
I would have to say that the butt flaps is not so much a derogatory term for ancient peoples in loincloths, but it's making fun of the standard model scientists who think that everybody in ancient times was running around in butt flaps.
Right. That's right.
That's what we're making fun of.
That's right. Also, your definition of skirp-derp is actually the definition of skirp-tard. It's just that Kyle and I screw that up so often that I don't blame
Not
you.
your fault.
Not your fault for getting it wrong. All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Next one here. Reptilian overlords. Hello, snakes. I must say that I thoroughly enjoy this podcast. I listen to multiple podcasts, and this is definitely a top priority for me. Since learning of you from Grimerica, Grimerica Swapcast, thank you for your leadership on the platform of podcasting my overlords. Your humble serpent Sab from Sab P via Apple Podcasts in Australia. Thanks, Sab.
Sabs.
And the last one I'm going to read here before we go to the next segment is Zoot Suit Giants. This is from Inra Rosewood from Great Britain. Hey, Snake Bros. Absolutely love the podcast. I checked you guys out after hearing you on Where Did the Road Go? You guys make me laugh, and it is informative. I actually listened to your band. Please, could you make a song about the Zoot Suit Giants throwing back a keg of beer? Thanks, guys, for the hours of interesting subject matter and laughs. Inra. Inra. So you have inspired us, and we have been writing lyrics for Zoot Suit Giants. And maybe one day we will we'll bust it out on the show. Just perform it with a drum and a guitar.
Yeah.
We've gotten some hilarious.
Russ just started sending out lyrics.
Oh,
man,
yeah.
I was cracking up. Yeah. We should be able to complete it shortly.
Yeah. Yours were great. I can't cut granite with copper tools. Freaking awesome, dude. Yeah, it's going to be great, Inra. So we'll do it. But for now, we're going to go ahead and take our break. I know it's a bit early, but we will come back after the break, and you guys will understand why. Snakes!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we are very happy to welcome back to the Snake Bros show the one and only Randall Carlson, along with Bradley, the traveling companion of Randall, fellow researcher, cameraman, scale man, and cliff stander on it. How are you guys doing?
I am all that, and I am here.
So yeah, for episode 108, we had to have Randall come blow our minds about numerology and all things associated with sacred numbers. How's it going, Randall?
No, pretty good. Good, man. I'm here.
Heck yeah. Episode 108.
So, episode 108. Well, that's certainly an auspicious number.
Yes, sir.
As you probably well know.
We do, because of you.
Oh, because of me.
That's right.
So, that's right. Go ahead. Blame it all on me.
It is entirely your fault that we fell down the number rabbit hole. So,
well, it's very gratifying to me to know that it is that I'm responsible for your sanity. You know, there was an old saying back in the 60s, a mind blown is a mind shown.
Ah.
That was kind of my philosophy of life for a few years, during those years of mind-blowing experimentation to see how far you could get outside the bounds of normal, conventional reality. Yeah. So,
well, that explains a lot.
Luckily, I made it. I was able to find my way back, though. Mostly.
Yeah.
Not completely.
I would say that,
mostly.
I was going to say, I don't think you completely found your way all the way back, but it's a good thing.
You learned a couple rap songs and eventually meandered back into reality.
Yeah, so numbers. Well, numbers, of course, are the key to a lot of things. You know, they were always foremost in the minds of scholars of old, and the sacred side of numbers has sort of been neglected. Now they're just, considered to be purely secular, purely without any connotations of anything beyond just a, day-to-day pragmatic use. But if we go back to some of the great thinkers of history, Galileo, for example, he said mathematics is the alphabet with which God has written the universe. I've always liked that.
That is a good quote.
Great.
Johannes Kepler said geometry existed before the creation. It is co-eternal with the mind of God. Geometry provided God with a model for the creation. Isn't that nice? St. Augustine said numbers are the thoughts of God. Yeah. So,
like mathematics is the language of creation, is the idea.
That's the idea. Mathematics is the language of creation, and specifically geometry. Geometry was considered to be a key, and that's why geometry was taught in the the Platonic Academy and the Pythagorean lodges.
Oh, yeah.
Plato had that famous quote over his over the entrance to his academy. And so I'm going to do a little screen share here showing the quote. I don't know if we can see. Can you guys see?
We're seeing it. I think we're
Let
seeing
none enter here who are ignorant of geometry. Now notice this is I like this a lot. I believe this was from Manly Palmer Hall. And what you're seeing here is the entrance to an ancient Masonic temple, an idealized version. And
we were actually looking.
Pillars,
wait a second.
The right pillar.
Wait a second, Randall. We're seeing here is wisdom, revelation.
Oh, what are you seeing?
We're seeing.
Okay, let me try this.
Yeah, change your screen share. We're seeing the Revelation 13:18 quote.
How did that get there? We were going to get into that. So
that's the next part. Yeah.
Well, no, since it's up now, let's go ahead and look at it. This is from Proverbs chapter 8, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set his compass upon the face of the deep. Now, are you seeing this? The Ancient of Days, the famous painting by William Blake, which was inspired by the verse I just read.
No, we're still seeing
It says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast." That's what we're seeing.
Oh,
it's the PowerPoint.
We don't
cabals.
We don't want to see that.
There we go.
Yeah, I see your mouse.
But I think you just need to stop that. You need to stop that screen share and start the.
Yeah, share a different screen.
I think you're right.
There you go.
There we go.
We'll learn how to do this, folks.
Yeah, we're getting it.
We'll learn how to do this. Okay, so I am going to do a screen share and share. Okay.
Now.
There it is, the Ancient of Days.
There he is, the Ancient of Days, setting his compass upon the face of the deep.
Yes.
And so the idea here is the turning of the compass. The turning of the compass sets the worlds into motion. It sets the universe into motion. It induces the angular momentum. This is the initial impulse that introduced the angular momentum into the universe, because everything we see is rotating, right? Everything is spinning. Everything is turning. Everything is in orbit, right? We know that the moon orbits the earth. The earth orbits the sun. The sun orbits the galaxy. One of the interesting questions is there any intermediate orbital centers between the sun and the center of the galaxy? That's something we could discuss someday. And there's some tantalizing traditions that would sort of suggest that is in fact the case, that you might think of it as an eddy within the galactic wheel, and it has created a sub-galactic orbital system.
Huh.
And we can certainly get into that at some point, because that could be a very interesting insight into a lot of the ancient mysteries. So here's the quote I just read.
Oh, okay.
I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or wherever the earth was. The key is the last sentence. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set his compass upon the face of the deep. And that was the inspiration. That verse was the inspiration behind this famous painting, The Ancient of Days, by William Blake. So that was the idea.
So the hand holding
here, and we will see.
The hand holding the compass the hand holding the compass there is implying that he is turning it. Is that the idea? He's setting everything in motion.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. He's going to turn the compass, and that's what sets the universe in motion. So that's kind of an interesting idea, that there was a divine impulse at the moment of creation. So
yes.
Yeah. And this is first was presented in Robert Lawler's classic work on sacred geometry, which I highly recommend. He showed how the word creation, written in Japanese Zen calligraphy, as it says here from right to left, and this is the sequence of, so the first act of creation would be the drawing of the circle. And once you have the circle, you can then generate the equilateral triangle within the circle very easily, because you have this elegant relationship between the circumference of a circle and its radius, which is that once you draw the circle, you can start at any point on the circumference of the circle, and you take your compass. You don't change the setting of your compass at all. You draw the circle, then you take your compass, you set the point of your compass anywhere on the circle, and if you're careful, you will discover that you can step around the compass, around the circumference of the circle with your compass exactly 6 times. So right there's kind of it suggests that the whole idea of a cycle of creation taking 6 days is metaphorical for a geometric exercise, because now what you've got is you draw the circle, and with the compass you can generate 6 points around the circumference of the circle, and the central point, the 7th point, is the point of rest. Does that make sense? Because the compass there, you see the geometric analogy there?
Right. And
Now,
are those
once
6 points 2 triangles? Is that the idea too? Is that where you're getting?
So now you can generate 2, an upward pointing and a downward pointing triangle, this so-called Seal of Solomon, within that circle. And you can also generate a hexagon. If you connect each successive point around the circle, you get a 6-sided polygon, which is the hexagon. And if you connect alternate points, alternate vertices now, you'll get an upward pointing equilateral triangle and a downward pointing. So from the circle, you can generate the 6 points around the circumference. You can then easily generate the equilateral triangle. And then by a further subsequent step, you can generate right angles and rectangles. So a circle is the simplest. It's the first generating form of geometry from which everything else comes. Then the equilateral triangle is very simple. It's probably the simplest. It is the simplest of the regular polygons. And then from there, you can generate squares and rectangles. But they're a little bit more complicated, see? So you can see that this sequence, read from right to left, is geometrically correct. It's going from circle to triangle to rectangle, and that would be the sequence from simplest to more complex forms.
Right.
Then through the combination of triangle and rectangle, or triangle and square, you can generate all of the polygons, understanding how, once you relate the two to each other. And then one of the interesting secrets of that was how to generate a 5-pointed polygon out of that. And that's something that I used to teach regularly in sacred geometry classes. And when I used to do the sacred geometry classes, which I'm sure I will probably do again when the time is right, when we have the place to do it, it was all hands-on. So the idea was each person was given a straight edge and a compass and led through the sequence of exercises pretty much like you would have done if you were back in Plato's Academy or, Pythagoras' Lodge and you were learning geometry. That's how it was taught, hands-on, compass and an unmarked straight edge. And with those 2 implements, you could generate the whole corpus of geometry, starting out with the 2D planar geometry. But once you've got that, you can then, through a process of transmutation, if you will, you can evolve upward into the 3-dimensional geometries. And basically that comes about because once you've generated the 2-dimensional geometries in the plane, you can fold those geometries up into the 3rd dimension, into the z-axis, and now generate your polyhedra, which are the 3-dimensional objects. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you've got in your plane, you've got your x and y axis, and in your z-axis, like if your x and y axes would be perpendicular to each other, your z-axis then would be perpendicular to those and give you a what am I trying to say here? I just
give you a 3-dimensional area to work
internet
in.
is yeah. So it gives you can fold up into that z-axis. You get the polyhedra. I got a message came up and said my internet connection was unstable. So hopefully we're not going to have a problem.
Yeah, it's a little glitchy, but we're understanding everything you're saying. And
it is a little glitchy.
But I wanted to ask you about that Zen calligraphy there. Does anyone know how old those symbols are? Like, like how long ago did somebody?
I'm sure we're going back centuries.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Probably back at least to the Middle Ages, maybe much longer. So let's see, I've got another image to share here. Have you ever seen this before?
Yeah, that kind of looks familiar.
Okay, now you'll notice you've got a compass set at 60 degrees, which then implies an equilateral triangle. And you have the square set at 90 degrees, which of course is the right angle. So it's through the combination of the 60-degree angle or the equilateral triangle and the 90-degree angle or the square that you can now generate the whole family of regular polygons. And then, from those. And so you see here, this is basically the Masonic symbol, because at the core of all the Masonic symbolry and philosophy is the art and science of geometry.
Right. So some people say the G stands for God, but are you saying it's geometry or the great architect?
The letter G actually can have several meanings.
Okay.
But the meaning that's generally inculcated in lodge traditions is right there with the two instruments,
Right.
But what are these instruments of? Right? They're instruments of geometry.
Right.
And there's a beautiful lecture in Freemasonry that talks about this. That geometry was the first and noblest of sciences, it's referred to, and is the basis upon which the superstructure of Freemasonry is based. So yeah, it's there. It's part of the whole system. It's the core of the system. But like I was reading earlier, I mean, to the ancient world, I mean, geometry was considered almost like a divine science, and even and in a lot of cases propagated in secret.
That is a beautiful picture right there.
Isn't that? Yeah. So this really kind of emphasizes the rotary motion of this planet we live on.
Right. So we're looking at it. That's an observatory, and we're looking at a long exposure towards the North Pole. Is that the idea? Or maybe the South Pole?
Yeah, here's the North Pole. This is a great, I found this on the internet years ago. And actually you can see right up here at the center, that little thick dash, that's Polaris, the North Star.
Wow.
So it's an interesting exercise to go, like on a summer evening, go out and sit facing north for a couple hours and just, you can actually see this motion taking place. And this is what, I would tell some of these flat earth folks to go out and,
the disc is rotating, Randall. Come on. The flat disc of the earth is spinning, so that's why that happens.
Yeah, but you see, it wouldn't look like this, though.
Yeah, I know.
This is a sphere with an axis.
That's right.
A spherical object rotating about an axis. That's what is generating this.
Yeah.
You see, this is not a full exposure. This is not a full 24-hour exposure. This is
right, because you can see the star lines are just they're not all the way around. So
right, but it certainly does convey the rotary nature of our diurnal existence.
Yes.
So, yeah, and then that goes back to this idea, which was a frontispiece to a 12th century Bible. And this is God, who is kind of, depicted in the conventional form of Jesus, but it's supposed to be God, the master builder of worlds. And notice again the idea here about to inscribe a circle, but you see that within that circle you've got chaos, and so the compass is going to bring order out of that chaos. And set things into motion, because without motion there's no life. That's the idea. You have to have motion to have life. If everything was just still and static rather than dynamic, it would all be a dead universe.
Right. So you need a little bit of chaos and a little bit of order to have.
You need this balance of chaos and order, because if it's all order, again, then it becomes static. That's right. The chaos will, induce evolutionary change.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I've always thought that was a fascinating idea, that there's an overlapping of chaos and order, and that's the basic premise of how you have an evolving universe. You got to have both of them.
you got to have both of them, exactly. And so here's Paul Jacques Griot, who was an architect. One of the early books that I read, showing architecture and architectural design connected with geometry. And as he says here, the world around us is a world of numbers that spell life and harmony. They are organized by the geometry of figures, all related to one another according to a sublime order into dynamic symmetry. Glimpses into this magnificent kingdom formed the basis of all our knowledge, and it seems that in this domain, the ancient civilizations had gone further than modern science. It's really a kind of a radical thing to say back in 1960.
Yeah. Well, we talk about it on the podcast all the time, that ancient civilizations have gone further than modern science in some aspects, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to stop the share now. So there's an old Masonic lecture that's quite beautiful. I'll quote a little bit out of it.
Okay.
And this is sort of in the, it's in the public domain, I think. So I'm not breaking any vows or anything here. This is probably going back to the 1700s even. If we consider the symmetry and order which govern all the works of creation, we must admit that geometry pervades the universe. The ancient philosophers placed such a high estimate upon this science that all who frequented the groves of the sacred academy were compelled to explore its heavenly paths, and no one whose mind was unexpanded by its precepts was entrusted with the instruction of the young. By geometry, we may curiously trace nature through her various windings to her most concealed recesses. By it, we discover how the planets move in their respective orbits and demonstrate their various revolutions. By it, we account for the return of the seasons and the variety of the scenes which each season displays to the discerning eye. By it, we discover the power, wisdom, and goodness of the grand artificer of the universe, and view with delight the proportions which connect the vast machine. Numberless worlds around us, all framed by the same divine artist, which roll through the vast expanse and are all governed by the same unerring law of nature. So that's an old Masonic lecture. I don't know of any lodges that do that lecture anymore. There's more to it than what I quoted here. But and then we have an inscription from an ancient 2nd century Chinese tomb, which gets us a little more specific into the ideas of geometry. He who understands the earth is a wise man, and he who understands the heavens is a sage. Knowledge is derived from the straight line shadow, and that is derived from the right angled joint. The combination of the right angle with numbers is what guides and rules the 10,000 things. And we will do another quick screen share here. This is from Keith Critchlow's work. Time Stands Still. Highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in this kind of subject matter. These are Borneo Tribesmen here. They've set that stick into the ground, which then casts a shadow and makes a right angled joint. And from that simple stick in the ground, they can essentially measure the heavens. They can measure the span of the year. They can lay out a magnificent geometric template upon the surface of the ground. I'm not sure exactly what these fellas are doing here, but they are definitely tracking the shadow cast by this vertical pole or stick set into the ground, which is basically serving the same function as, for example, an obelisk in Egypt.
Right.
You see, when you have an obelisk with a sharp point at the top, that means the shadow has a sharp point. And through the course of the day, that shadow swings in a great arc around. It not only is swinging around, but it's also first shortening and then growing again in length. So if you have a pole in the ground and you draw a circle around it and you begin to track the shadow, as the sun rises, the shadow shortens. Early in the morning, the shadows of anything will be long, won't they?
Right.
At noon, at high noon, the shadow will be the shortest that it is in the day. And then as the sun proceeds into the west and gets lower in the sky, the shadow grows to the east, right? And the shadows at the end, as you get towards dusk, they get longer and longer until eventually they would become theoretically infinite in length. But what they have done is they've traced out a geometry on the ground that can be mapped. And then from that geometry, you can determine the cardinal directions and you can lay out whatever geometric template you want. So when the architects of old were going to build, the first thing they did after they had identified the omphalos, or the navel center of the temple, which was allegorically the navel of the world. The omphalos was the Greek word that meant navel. Usually there would be somebody who had a skill, a divining skill, or some type of extrasensory ability, who would determine where the sacred center was, the omphalos. And then through an act of acupuncture, once that omphalos, which was found at the intersection of the Earth's meridian lines, the acupuncture needle or the pole or the staff would be inserted into that point. And then through tracking the shadows, the temple would be laid out, the template. Notice the word temple and template, you see. Also notice the similarity of the word temporal, which means time, right? Because the temple was based on a template, was an image of time frozen.
Man, we've given archaeologists so much flack for calling everything that they find a temple or a tomb. But yeah, I guess we have to strike temple from that one, because that's I never put that together. That's great.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah. So that was kind of the idea behind the temple, and it just any old building couldn't be a temple. Obviously, it had to conform to certain principles. For one, the first thing I said was the identification of the omphalos, and then from there, and see, here's the other thing to bear in mind, guys. When you put that pole in the earth and you start creating templates from the shadows, they're all going to vary depending on your latitude. So the geometry that's generated, at 23.5 degrees north is not going to be the same as that generated from 45 degrees north. And so you get a template that is attuned to that particular place on the earth.
Right. So I have a question about the pole real quick. I'm just looking at this picture you've got here. And Kyle and I are builders, and we've done a lot of surveying. And so you have to make sure that pole is like actually vertical. So do they have a way of doing that to make sure that it was actually perfectly straight?
I'm sure they do. And I'm not sure how these fellows here would have done that.
Yeah.
Of course, I do it with a plumb bob.
Right. Plumb bob is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I would do it. I do it with the plumb bob. And there is let's see, I may have another slide here I can pull up. Let's see if I've got it handy that shows the process.
God, look at all those slides. One day One day.
Maybe it's not here. Okay, I guess
That's all right. I just want to know if
it's in a different program. Well, yeah, it's basically, imagine that you set up a something that looks like the Greek letter pi. So you've got two verticals and a horizontal, and you essentially hang a plumb bob from the horizontal.
right.
Is how it was actually done. I don't know how they're plumbing this particular staff.
So you can measure at the at where the plumb bob is, if it's closer to one pole or the other, and then you can stand in line with the two poles to see if the plumb bob is sticking out
Yeah.
on either side, and that would give you your two axes.
Mm-hmm.
Genius. We need to sell that transit. Just get a plumb bob.
Well, to me, it's fun to combine, modern technology with some ancient techniques.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
To me, that's a lot of fun.
You were telling us, so you were talking about that, you put the pole in the ground, you make sure that it's absolutely vertical using a plumb bob or whatever your technique is. And then you draw the circle around the pole, and so the pole has to be at the exact center of that circle you draw. And then you mark where the shadow crosses the line. When the tip of the shadow comes in and crosses the line, you mark that spot, and then you wait for the other side. Then you wait for
Here's what you do. You got a picture. You got that pole, and you draw a circle around it, a fairly large circle, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Depends on the height of the pole. I mean, you could actually do this on a really small scale. You could have in fact, when I was teaching geometry classes to kids a decade or two ago, I would just have a piece of plywood with a dowel stuck in it. You take that outside and have a circle around. So you can do it on a really small scale. Obviously, if you do it on a larger scale, you're going to get greater accuracy. And if you're going to actually build a structure, you would want to get it pretty accurate. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw a circle, and this would be done by using a rope or a chain. Oftentimes you might have a chain with a round link on the end, and you would slide that over the pole, right? And each link in the chain would be a specified length, and you pull the chain out, and by counting the number of links, you could then determine a radius, which is actually a more accurate way than doing a knotted rope, which would also work. But I like the chain method because where each link is very uniform.
Right.
So then you draw your circle. Okay, so now the sun is rising, and it's rising in the east, so your shadow is going to point to the west, and it's going to be really long. Now, as the sun's rising up, the shadow is shortening. At the same time, it's swinging around. So somewhere, depending on the relationship between the length of the pole and the radius of the circle, somewhere you want to set it up so somewhere around maybe mid-morning or even a little earlier, the point of the shadow will intersect the circle. And when it does, at that point of intersection, you'd drive a stake. Now you'd wait, and then as the sun shifts over to the west, the shadow is now pointing to the east. And as the sun is setting, the shadow is getting longer. Sometime during late afternoon, the point of the shadow is now going to touch the circle again. You drive the second stake there. Now, and I've done this. Okay, so now you drive a stake in each one. Yeah. I would probably take a small nail and put in the top of each stake, and then you take a piece of mason's line, tie it off on one stake, stretch it to the other one, tie it off, and that pretty much will give you a very accurate east-west line.
That's freaking awesome. Yes. How do they figure this out?
I have a question about that. So you've got the height of the pole and then the radius of the circle. That's going to determine the difference in time between the point intersecting one side, the eastern side, and the western side.
Yeah.
But is there a way to make the ratio such that it's, say, 8 hours, or to know? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, you could work all that out, but you don't really almost need to. It's more an empirical process than a theoretical process. obviously if your circle is too big, it's going to be awkward. If it's too small, like in this case, if you're looking back at the two Borneo tribesmen, you would want your circle to be 3 or 4 times, its radius to be at least 3 or 4 times the length of the pole.
Okay.
See?
Because the bigger the circle, the higher the resolution of your east-west line, basically.
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering, because like the pyramid, like the Great Pyramid, there's something about the 52-degree angle on the sides, and then the height of the pyramid relationship to the circumference of the circle is the pi relationship. Isn't that right? I think so. Yeah. So I wonder if you take that relationship, what is the time difference? Or so you see what I'm saying? I was just curious, like if there's that would be interesting.
Okay. Well, that time difference is going to be, based upon the ratio between the length of the pole and the radius of the circle. And what you don't want to do is, obviously, if you try to do it too early, the shadow is going to be too damn long. You don't want to have to go out, 600 or 800 feet, and have a circle that big. You want to have a circle that's, 20 or 30 feet in diameter might be a typical good working size, right? And then what's going to happen is, so you don't want to be too early in the morning because that's impractical. And then if you wait too long, as you get towards noon, now the shadow gets too short. And what's happening there is now the 2 points of intersection are going to be so close. They're going to be, the closer you get to noon, the closer those 2 points are going to be to each other, you see?
Right. Yeah. And then your accuracy goes down again.
And your accuracy goes down. So you want to have enough, and obviously this is going to be relative to the scale of what you're trying to do with it. Let's say if you're going to build a house or a temple, whatever, a building that's going to be, let's just say a normal size house or building in that scale. Well, then using a 6-foot pole like these Borneo tribesmen are doing, you would probably want to have a circle, like I said, between 20 and 30 feet. And then that would give you enough accuracy that you would, you drive your 2 stakes, you run your line, and now that gives you an east-west axis. Now, you can use that as the axis of your building or not, because once you've got that establishment line, once you've generated that line, the line, you would call it a generatrix, because from that, you could do a second line that would be parallel to it. So any line that's parallel to that first generatrix is also going to be east-west. And through simple geometry, you could erect a perpendicular to that line, which is then obviously going to be north and south. Now, the other thing is you can do a north-south line by going back to the method that I said, where you would have 2 verticals and a horizontal, and you hang a plumb bob. And then you have to have a back sight of some kind set against the North Star. And, because the North Star is not exactly at the North Celestial Pole, it's rotating around it a little bit. What you want to do is you want to sight against the North Star twice, 12 hours apart.
Huh.
And then split the difference. And now you've got a dead-on north orientation. And see, this would be really fun to me if we had a group of people and we were actually going to build something using these techniques. To take a group out onto a building site and lay out this template on the earth. And, in the philosophy of the old builders, they believed that when you followed certain principles and practices and procedures, that the structure you had built was like a living thing. It was an organic. So when the builders of the Middle Ages were building the high Gothic cathedrals, they were looking at those as an organic living thing growing up out of the earth. And each of the stones that went into the cathedral or into the temple were prepared and shaped according to certain philosophical principles. They were actually ceremoniously, consecrated before their placing into the building, into the structure. And that was kind of the whole philosophy behind it. It wasn't just we're building a building, we're building a monument to the sacred nature of the universe. And we're building it according to these, we're using these principles that are the principles that the divine creative power of the universe is used to create the world and the living things within it. In fact, in the old, and we do this whenever we build a house, the old Scandinavian builders, whenever they would build a church, in fact, you could probably even go online. I could pull up pictures here of some of our job. We haven't done one for a few years, but basically what you do is up on the ridge beam, the gable, apex of the gable up on the ridge beam, you go and you cut a living bough, probably usually from an evergreen tree, and you attach it to the ridge beam of the building. And what that does is it's a symbol that the life power is coming up from the earth, flowing through the timbers, flowing through the structures, the beams and the girders and the rafters and things, and the life force has now infused that building.
Oh, wow.
So that's just kind of a different way of doing it,
But it almost seems like imagining what you're saying, going out and laying all this out, and then having a philosophy about how you're cutting this down, all this stuff about the Gothic cathedrals. It's like, we build buildings today for other purposes. Like, well, we need a place to put all this stuff. It's called a mall, and people are going to come there and buy it, or a warehouse or whatever. Yeah. But it almost seems like the purpose of those buildings was to build them.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you. I found one here. Let's see if I can get this.
Hey, I think we've got Beard Mike.
Uh-oh, Beard Mike. Okay.
We're going to have to come up with a catchy name for that.
Yeah.
A secret phrase that only the initiated will know.
Yeah.
All right. So let me do a screen share here. And
Jeez, you guys, this is incredible.
You see that?
I see it. Look at that.
That's actually in Australia, a recent topping out in Victoria. But yeah, this was a thing that they did of old. And, the Scandinavians, and that's kind of the building tradition that I come out of. My dad his nickname used to be Swede Carlson, because he was 100% Swede. My grandpa, his father was an immigrant from Sweden. And so they kind of had these traditions. The Scandinavians, I don't know if it's Scandinavians here doing this in Australia, but I would say the idea was probably not limited to them. But that's what you see here. The idea, the evergreen bough up on the ridge represents the fact that the life force is suffused. It's rising up from the earth, passing through the structural members of the building. See, and now it's almost like you're saying that it's blossoming out of the apex or roof of the building. See,
right.
Yeah, so let's see here. It says here the tree is an ancient construction tradition. There are many such rites associated with a new edifice, including the laying of foundation stones, the signing of beams, and ribbon cuttings. But what's particularly charming about the construction tree is that it isn't associated with the beginning or the end of construction. Rather, the tree is associated with the raising of a building's highest beam or structural element. Hence the name of the rite, the topping out ceremony. It is a sign that a construction project has reached its literal apogee, its most auspicious point.
That's really cool.
That is cool, isn't it? Yeah.
OSHA would not allow this.
Well, we do it. I mean, we do it whenever we have, a building that we're topping out that we has a roof. we will do that. So yeah, I've got pictures of our jobs going back 30 years ago where it's topped out with an evergreen bow.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yep.
Don't tell him.
Yeah. Just don't tell Osho about that.
We're not going to tell him, folks.
Stop share. Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, and you know, we spend a lot of time talking about the some of the ancient construction styles, like, you know, the Cyclopean style, where every block is a different shape and size.
Yeah.
Do you think all of that has sacred geometry built into it as well, or are they doing that purely for structural reasons? I mean, have you looked at that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, yeah, I would prefer not to proffer an opinion on that, having not studied it firsthand.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, here's what I would guess. I would guess that there is a template there. You know, the template can be rigorously formal, or it can be very organic, and everything in between. Because, you know, you're dealing with natural forces here. And so, you know, if you're building according to the, let's say the patterns of underground water, you know, your temple is going to have a more organic feel to it.
Yes. Okay.
You know, so it can run the gamut, like I said, from formal, rigorously formal to very organic feeling. The other thing that was important was the idea of scale and variance. I can't stress how important that is, not only in geometry and sacred architecture, but in the earth itself, in the landscapes. And we will be getting into that in the Monday night podcasts, because scale and variance is a key to understanding a lot of the forms and features of the earth that are oftentimes on too grand of a scale to perceive directly. However, they have their counterparts in a much smaller scale. Now, of course, we're now in a privileged position in the last half century, because we are now, you know, able to access perspectives of the earth from outside the system. You know, think about, for thousands of years, basically your understanding of the earth is what you could see around you from the ground. You know, that's why when J. Harlan Bretz was studying the Channel Scablands and mapping that, it took him over 2 decades of driving, you know, on foot to map out what you can see from a satellite view and get instantly in a matter of seconds. It took him over 2 decades to map that. And as a recognizing his skill, his maps that he came up with are very, very close to what we actually see now through satellite surveys.
Oh, wow.
But again, you know, it took him over 2 decades of arduous work to draw those maps, because he couldn't see the big picture from the ground. It took him 20 years before he could see the big picture.
Yeah. And for me personally, like looking at things like precession in the models that you can find that are illustrating as though you're viewing it from the outside, you're looking down on the earth, you're seeing the solar system and all this stuff. So your viewpoint is far away, and you're seeing these models doing all this stuff. It's fairly easy to grasp that. But the difficult thing for me is to stand on the ground and look at the sky and say, how does that actually translate to what I would see in the sky over time?
Yeah.
It's really difficult, even in the simplest thing of like how the plane of the ecliptic sort of drifts across the sky over the course of a year. These things but you can look at a map from a perspective outside the earth and sort of pick up on it easily, but it's not easily translated to our perspective, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so amazing that they figured out these ways, and such simple ways to figure out like the north-south line. And I love that.
But you still have to marvel at the intelligence behind it.
Yes.
That's right.
You know, that someone would actually conceive of that.
Right. Well, I'm a big fan of Richard Feynman, and one of his things was, you know, the simple principles are the most elegant, the most difficult to arrive at. It's you can come up with these theories and ideas that are incredibly complex, but it's very, very difficult to simplify them down. And every time when they discover like a law of physics, it turns out to be beautifully simple
and symmetrical and beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can do another screen share here, and I can show kind of the sequence we were describing before about the generation of the polygons. Here, we'll do this. And
yeah, so while you're pulling that up, I just want to say, like, we live in an area that it's the Edwards Plateau. It's very eroded. So when I look at it on a satellite map, there are clear erosional patterns, and you can see them when you're looking down at it from a satellite map or whatever. But living in it, I would never pick those patterns up, like just driving around it or walking around in it. It's basically, or looking out at it, you see hills, and it seems random. But as soon as you get that above view, you understand, oh, there's a huge erosional pattern here. It's just almost impossible to grasp it from the ground without doing a lot of surveying work and mapping, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why now I supplement when Bradley and I are traveling. We're all of our expeditions are prefaced with a lot of map work, a lot of aerial photography, a lot of satellite photography, and so we've had that preparation, so we kind of can get that picture in our mind as we're traversing these landscapes with a more limited perspective.
Yeah.
All right. Do we see this image?
Yes. Entry into the realm of sacred geometry. Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, it begins with a circle, right? The simple act of putting a compass to paper, or putting your pole into the ground and drawing that circle around it. And this is what I was talking about before. The radius of a circle exactly divides the circumference of the circle into 6 equal parts. So you see there that you've just basically, you could start anywhere in the circumference, step off one increment. It's going to be 1/6 of the way around the circle. And then if you draw radial lines from the center and connect them, you end up with an equilateral triangle. And then if you step all the way around the circle, you end up with a hexagon. And you can divide that up when you get, your 6 equilateral triangles. And then if you connect alternate vertices, now you end up with the 6-pointed star, the so-called Seal of Solomon. And of course, now you can generate from that an infinite number of other polygons inside that, the hexagons. See, I could do another hexagon inside this one. I could, by projecting the sides out, I can create, see, if I project this side out, this side out, where they meet will give me the points of another star out here. So once I've got my initial hexagon, I can expand it or I can contract it. I can expand it to infinity in theory, or contract it to infinity to theory. Now, of course, in the real world, I'm limited, right? But
well, you don't have infinite paper? Come on.
Not yet. But in the theoretical world, yeah, we can go in the conceptual world. Now, if you draw 2 circles of the same radius overlapping, now this is the doorway into the whole realm of geometry right here, because you've got, the point here is that you draw 1 circle and then you draw a second circle, but the second circle, two criteria here, has to be the same radius, and the center of the second circle can be anywhere on the circumference of the first circle. And then you're going to get the overlap like you see here. And once you've got that overlap, you connect the line of centers and the 2 intersecting points of the overlapping circles, and now you have your right angles.
Yes.
And see, from that, now what I've done is I've inserted a circle in there, the quartering of the circle. Inserting a circle inside the vesica, which this figure here, by the way, this lozenge here is called a vesica. It's also it's called a vesica piscis, or vessel of the fish. And so it's the vesica, it's related to the word vessel. And what is a vessel?
A container.
Container. Yeah. And what else does a vessel do?
It moves things. Perhaps.
Yeah, it does. It does. It moves things here. I've got my good old dictionary right here, and it says that a vessel it's a hollow utensil used as a container. It's also a craft.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a craft designed to navigate.
Yeah.
Especially on water. Also an airship. That's interesting.
I've wanted to ask you, you say vesica piscis. Is that the same word as Pisces? Or?
Yes. So
Okay.
It's the vessel of the fish.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
that symbol is like, the way you would draw the symbol of the fish
Yeah.
that's used in the Christian tradition. Like,
Yeah. Flip it on its side, add a tail and a fin and an eye, and you got you've got ichthys, the fish. Okay, so now I've drawn, notice what I've done here. The next step is I'm setting the radius of my compass to this half step here. Notice my original radius is this whole line of centers. But now I'm setting my compass to half of that, centering my my fixed limb of the compass on the crossing of these two lines, and then I draw a circle within the vesica. And so now what I've got is my quartered circle, which basically is this universal symbol, which represents the fundamentals of geography.
Oh, right.
So notice when you've got here, we've got time and space coordinated with this quadrature of the circle. So we've got, in the annual cycle, we would have winter solstice, spring equinox, summer solstice, and autumn equinox. In the diurnal or daily cycle, we'll have midnight, sunrise, noon, and sunset. And then in the cardinal directions, we'll have north, east, south, and west. Now, notice winter solstice. Here's our scale invariance again. Notice the correlation between annual cycle and diurnal cycle. Winter solstice corresponds with midnight and north. Spring equinox corresponds with sunrise and east. Summer solstice with high noon in the direction south. And autumn equinox with sunset in the direction west.
Oh.
So you want to begin to kind of integrate these ideas into your mind and these correlations.
Okay, so a lot of times the ancients would, cite in, say, one of the zodiacal constellations using either the sunrise or the sunset, right? Which constellation that was where the sun was rising or setting on the spring or autumn equinox.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick sunset or sunrise. In other words, if you're doing it on the autumn equinox, you would do it during sunset, as opposed to the spring equinox, you would do it during sunrise.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if your idea is to try to get the heliacal rising,
right, that would be sunrise. Yeah,
star or constellation. It was usually done at sunrise.
Right.
So you would observe the sky to see what showed up on the horizon, what rose on the horizon, on the eastern horizon, just before the sun.
Right.
And I think that, extended observations over many, many centuries, would begin to disclose the fact that that the stars were drifting.
Yes.
And so that, the stars that were showing up heliacally or on the horizon just before the sun rose would change, and that change would be observable over a span of centuries.
Right.
In fact, the change over 72 years, which is basically a human lifespan, would be one degree on the ecliptic.
Yeah, that's not a lot to know. You have to be really paying attention to notice that.
Yes. Now, to get some sense of 1 degree on the ecliptic, a full moon is a half a degree.
Yeah, that's
So if you can think of two circles, two full moon circles tangent to each other in the sky, that would be 1 degree. So notice here that the moon is kind of defines first in its own orbit 360 degrees and 720 segments of half degrees. So right there, you've got 360 and 720 that nature has basically given us.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, so one full moon is 1/720th of its distance, its orbital distance.
How did that happen?
It's all coincidence.
All right.
So the sun is essentially the same, right? It's a half degree.
Well, yes. So the orb of the sun, right. And so when the sun is rising or setting is when you can actually visibly look at it without burning your eyeballs. Yeah, pretty much it's going to be at a half a degree. And of course there's variations because you've got perigee and apogee, right, which is when the moon is closest to the earth and when it's farthest away. So the moon varies. At perigee, it's about 221,000 miles from the Earth. At apogee, it's about 252,000. So obviously at perigee, the moon is going to look somewhat bigger, and at apogee, it's going to look somewhat smaller. And likewise with the sun, because, you know, the Earth's orbit around the sun is not perfectly circular, it's elliptical. So
Right.
the average, though, works out to be very close to 93 million, but, you know, at perihelion, it's a little closer, and at aphelion, it's a little farther away. So,
And also there's atmospheric lensing, which can result in when it's on the horizon, it looks enormous, right?
yeah, what's important here for people to understand is that, you know, it's just like in any set of architect's plans, you're looking at a theoretical ideal. And no matter how skilled the craftsmen that then now execute the project, there's going to be some variation, some deviance that enters into the real world execution of the idealized theoretical pattern.
Right. So basically what you're saying is God was like, well, it looked good on paper.
Well, so God is working from a geometric template, but then in the execution of the real world, there's going to be variation. And see, again, that gets back to what we were talking about between this symmetry between order and chaos. See?
Yes. Right.
Because there are these little deviations introduced into the system. You've now introduced chaos into the system.
Right. And the chaos allows for there to be change over long periods of time. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It allows for a dynamic system during which life can arise.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just going to be dead matter. And here, in the next image, is that quartered circle laid onto the ground.
Oh.
This is a really cool exercise here. You lay out the quartered circle on the ground and you get a chair and you put right at the intersection and then you sit there. In the northern hemisphere, we would look to the south. And then you sit there in that chair for 1 year.
I can do that. Hey, I can do that.
Well, you would have, you know, Russ, you could do that. And then Kyle, you would bring him lunch every day.
Yes.
Yeah, and make sure he's fed while he's sitting there for his whole year.
Just coffee.
Just need coffee. I'll be fine.
Okay. No, you wouldn't. Actually, Russ, you wouldn't have to sit there the whole time. You could get up and leave from time to time, but you'd want to come back.
Right.
So what you're seeing here is that you'll see summer solstice. You're looking to the south. The line that would picture where the line, you've got a north-south line, and then at right angles to that, you've got an east-west line. So look at that north-south line where it intersects the circle at south. Now picture a circle, an arc coming up in the z-axis that arcs over to the zenith and then down the other side.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and so now the winter solstice sun, the equinoctial sun, and the summer solstice sun are all going to be arrayed on that line, which is the local meridian line. right? So this is your meridian here that you're seeing, and the meridian line would extend from it would start by coming up from the horizon due south, and then it would pass over the zenith. Now, what's the zenith? The zenith is the point in the sky that if you set up a plumb bob, right, one end of that plumb bob is pointing to the center of the earth, right?
Right.
The other line, if it was a vector, it would be pointing to the apex of the celestial dome, which is the zenith.
Okay.
Now, the zenith is a local phenomena. So my zenith right now in Georgia is not the same as your zenith in Texas.
Right.
You would be looking at a different point in space than I would. But relatively speaking, it would be the point directly overhead. So if you can picture this line coming up from the horizon due south, passing over your zenith, and then arcing down and touching the horizon at due north, everything is measured off your local meridian, right, east and west. And so you've got your hour lines, which are each 15 degrees, measured left and right of that. You see, now what they've done, for the geographers have done, is they have lined up the local meridian with the Greenwich meridian.
Okay, right.
See, so now they've kind of standardized the system. So if you really wanted to get the full effect, you would need to go sit in Greenwich, England, and with your chair.
I'm down.
You're down, man.
Too far for me to bring coffee.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. We need a field trip here. They'll probably be wondering what we're doing there.
Why has that guy been sitting in that chair for like 8 months?
Well, I'm thinking we could probably get a sofa.
Yeah.
Put there. Because, you might want to take naps and stuff.
Yeah, give me a nice recliner. It'll be great.
So okay. So now looking at this, you can see the summer solstice, the sun's way up much higher in the sky than it is at the equinoxes and the winter solstice. Now, there are one winter solstice per annual cycle, one summer solstice, and 2 equinoxes. So you'll also notice that if you follow the path coming up from the east for the summer solstice arc, that yellow line comes up, passes through at high noon, it's going to be due south, right? And then it's going to arc around and it's going to set in the west. Now notice winter solstice, it's basically doing the same thing, but notice how much shorter the path is.
Right.
Right? So right there, graphically, you can see why summer solstice daytime is much longer than winter solstice daytime.
Right. It's the circle that the sun is describing. There's much more of it above the plane of the ground there.
Yes. And then, of course, at equinoxes, they're going to be precisely the same.
Right.
Now, equinox, most people think equinox, today is the day of the equinox. But really, it's not a full day. It's just a moment. It's a mere moment in time that has actually no duration at all. It's simply a moment, right? But obviously, for the real world, I always say, well, narrow it down to a second or two, because that would be, you could realistically measure the equinox to within a couple of seconds of the actual moment. But, it's kind of like Zeno's paradox. It's kind of like fractals. If you took that 1 second and microscopically zoomed in on it,
yeah,
you see that the moment of equinox is just an infinitesimally small part of that.
Right.
See? But we don't need to go there, because we're living in a 3-dimensional real world of time and space. So if we can get it within a couple of seconds, hey, we're good, okay?
Right. But those couple of seconds are they going to be at noon, or are they going to be at sunrise?
Well, it depends, because that would all depend on where you are. See, what would you have to do is find the exact point on Earth to be. For example, if you wanted that moment to be exactly due south, you need to be at the right place. And I've figured that out. I don't remember exactly where it is. But, that point moves. So if you were setting your chair up to look at the moment of equinox, when it crosses the local meridian on to the south, the next year you would have to move your chair a little bit. actually. That is if you were going to sit there for multiple years. Now, if you wanted to sit there for an entire lifetime, you could get a good sense of the precessional motion.
Okay. So Kyle and I set up we did on the equinox, we set up a transit, and right at dawn, we sighted the transit in, and we decided that was the east-west line, and that's wrong. Basically, it's not quite accurate. Is that that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
What did you sight on?
So on the equinox, we set up a transit, and when the sun came up over the horizon, right when it touched the horizon on the equinox, we sighted the transit right at it, and we drew that as our east-west line. And you're saying that that's going to be a little bit off.
It's going to be a little bit off, yeah. It is going to be a little bit off because, see, you were on the day. See, so you were there and did it at sunrise,
right?
But the moment of equinox didn't necessarily coincide with your local sunrise,
right?
Yeah, see, I was baffled because I came back at sunset, and all I had to do was flip the transit over to point the other direction. It's just a simple, just flipping the sighting scope.
Swinging around 180 degrees.
Yeah, and the sun's setting, and it's not in line. And I was like, what's the deal? But now I think I understand.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have been pretty disconcerting.
Yeah.
We were like, what's wrong with the universe?
What's wrong with the universe? The universe is effed up.
That's right.
Yeah, well, that partly explains it. Also, the fact that, undoubtedly you weren't on you would, in order to do this with a high degree of accuracy, you'd have to be on an absolutely dead level plane.
Right, which that was the idea that I basically blamed it on the fact that the possibility that the elevation over there where the sun rose was different from the elevation where I saw it setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that I'm sure that was probably the major part of it, actually.
Okay.
And it's amazing that even, when ground, the land looks level, it may not be level at all. I mean, I'll get out, we're laying out a project right now for a new building, and the owner, the guy comes out there and he's thinking that it's, oh yeah, well, it's a pretty level site. But then I showed him, well, over 30 feet, it drops 3 feet.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to explain to him is why we couldn't, well, I was saying if we're going to do this on a slab, we're either going to have to fill up 3 feet on one edge or excavate 3 feet on the other, or some combination of the two. And he was, well, what? Is it that? So I took him out there and we pulled the level line and showed him that,
it's hard to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on grade up here, but 30 feet away, it's 3 feet down. So he goes, oh, I see. That's why the foundation is going to cost that much.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So now I want to go out there to our site where we did this thing with the transit and try your sun pole shadow trick and see how off our east-west line is.
Well, and here's the thing: your east-west line is going to be a little bit off too.
Oh,
yeah, because you see, here's the thing: in the say the 8 hours or 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, and it's going to be depending on what time of year you do it too. But the span of time between those two, remember, the Earth has now been moving 18 miles per second around the sun. So that's going to throw you off, because now the Earth is going to be, let's say you do 8 hours. Well, 8 times 3,600 times 18, the Earth has now moved over 500,000 miles.
Right.
In those 8 hours.
Well, how did the ancients do all these? How did they get it all so precise? Like that the Great Pyramid is so freaking precise on the cardinal points. They must have.
Well, you would just have to do. You would have to make multiple observations and then interpolate.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's how you would do it.
You have to do it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you would do it more than once. And like the method I was describing for the for finding the north axis, you can get that pretty damn close. If you can picture what I'm saying, I have a graphic somewhere. It may take me a few minutes to find it and pull it up. But basically, again, imagine that you've got this looks something that looks like a goalpost, and the horizontal bar, you've got a plumb bob hanging from there, and then you use that, and then you sight against the North Star, right?
Right. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So now you get a foresight in front of it. So you've got 3 points: the observation point, the plumb line, and the North Star. And you get that exact line. You put a stake in the ground there. Now, 12 hours later, the North Star is going to have gone through half of its circuit around the exact celestial North Pole, right? So you take a second sighting, put a second stake in the ground, and now what you do is you split the difference between those two. Because one stake represents a line tangent to one side of the arc, the other stake represents a tangent line to the other side of the arc.
Right. So you'd have to do this near the winter solstice when you have more than 12 hours of darkness so that you can see the North Star over a long period of time.
Well, actually, what you would want is as close to 12 hours as you could get.
Right. I'm just saying so that means you need 12 hours of darkness, which means you need a long night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That would be exactly right.
Man, that's cool. We need to try both of those up on our Hill Hinge project.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so it'd be interesting. Now, I've never done the North Star thing, but you could certainly, it wouldn't be hard to do. I mean, it conceptually, it's pretty straightforward, and it's just a matter of a little bit of trial and error to get your ideal sighting positions and so on.
Right, and then make sure you have a night that's where you're no clouds move in and obscure.
Right. Yes. Right. Exactly. So,
well, thanks, man. We're going to have to go rip up our hill hinge project.
Yeah. We've been building this giant hill hinge project based on our faulty freaking measurements of the east-west line, and now we're going to have to start over.
well.
But we want future archaeologists to think we knew what we were doing, so we need to do this right.
Yeah, even if you don't know what you're doing, you want to try to give the impression that
right.
you do.
Yeah, we definitely need to give them the impression that we freaking knew what we were doing. Yeah, and that we had lasers. They need to try to figure out how they did this without lasers. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can do lasers now. We have technology, so we don't need to use it. But it's fun to do the old techniques,
right?
And really, you can refine those techniques and get them to be extremely accurate.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea there.
Man. Well, I think we got a lot of Snake Bros, Snake Force people out there. I would encourage anybody out there to try these techniques. I mean, especially the one with the pole in the ground in the shadow. That sounds fun and it's pretty easy.
Yeah, when you're laying out your garden, just do that first, and then you can, I don't know, a temple garden.
Yeah, make it fit the shape of the universe and at least point in the right direction. So
yeah.
Well, Randall, this has been fantastic, man. Thank you so much for coming on for episode 108.
Oh, really? Is this the end of it now?
Not quite.
I mean, not quite the end.
Okay, not quite the end. Well, maybe we should talk about a little bit more.
Yeah.
You wanted to get into some numbers.
I would. Yes, let's get into some numbers.
Okay.
We're gonna go long.
We'll go a few minutes over.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about the podcast. So you already mentioned it once. So let's do some numbers, and then we'll talk about the podcast.
No, okay. Yeah, so we won't get into any gematria tonight, or gematria. Magic squares, which are always fun. You guys ever worked with magic squares?
No.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll look at one. This is the magic square of the sun. People might get a kick out of this, or they might go away concluding we're a bunch of Satanists.
Either one I'm fine with.
Okay. Share.
Ah.
There's the magic square of the sun. Get your calculator handy, Kyle?
I do.
Okay, let's just take the top row. And what I want you to do is I want you to add up the numbers 6, 32, 3, 34, 35, and 1 across the top row.
Okay.
And tell me what you get.
35 1. 6 plus 32 plus 3 plus 34 plus 35 plus 1 equals 111. 111.
Okay, so let's do the left-hand column going down. 6, 7, 19, 18, 25, and 36.
25, 36.
111.
Again.
I tell you what, let's try the diagonal. 6, 11, 16, 21, 26, 31.
21.
Oh,
Oh,
6, 11, 16.
21, 26, 31.
31. A 1, a 1, 1.
Again.
Pick a row or column at random that you haven't done.
All right, do 25, 29, 10, 9, 26, 12.
111.
How
is this happening?
It's because it's magic.
How are these?
It's the magic. Then this is called the magic square of the sun, and it was used by, shall we say, magicians and occultists and ceremonialists from the Middle Ages through the Renaissance. They were used in these rituals and ceremonies. Now, would you agree? Would you accept this on faith if I said if you added up any of the 6 rows across, you're going to get 111?
Yes.
Try 7, 11, 27, 28, 8, and 30.
7.
Do it. I'm going to do it. 7,
11, 27,
7,
28, 8, and 30.
111.
Yeah.
Tis.
Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. If you agree with me that every row across equals 111, or every column down equals 111, you've got 36 numbers, right? Think about this now. If you've got 6 rows, each equaling 111, what's the total value of the magic square of the sun?
666.
Now, have we ever heard of that number before?
Sounds familiar.
Yes, Book of Revelation. Here is wisdom, it says. Let him who hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, 666. That's where it's most usually associated with that particular verse.
Right.
And it shows up in other places too, but you can see here that it's associated with this particular magic square. And the connection is not simply fortuitous. It actually, I think, helps to disclose the symbolic significance of that particular number. And there are other places where it shows up. And it's usually associated with evil,
right?
But not always. See, and here's the thing. And this was the work where the late John Michel showed back, way back in the 60s and 70s, is that the number 666 frequently shows up in association with solar symbolism. In the same way that the number 1080 shows up frequently with lunar symbolism. And in his cosmological concepts, he saw that the lunar force and the solar force had to interact in certain ways in order to produce an outcome, which if you add those together, those two numbers, you get 1,746, which is a number that has some very interesting significance to it. It was Luke 17, verse 20 in the New Testament. So this was Jesus speaking, right? The Greek Jesus, right? For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. So now the Greek spelling of grain of mustard seed is kokos synapios. Kokos synapios. We'll save this for a future podcast, but you have Kappa, Omicron, Kappa, Kappa, Omicron, Sigma, final Sigma, Sigma, Iota, Nu, Alpha, Pi, Eta, Epsilon, Omicron, Omega, Sigma. That's how it's spelled. Now, like I said, we'll save this for another time, but the point being, and this opens up a whole nother branch of numerical symbolism, is that prior to the advent of the Hindu Arabic numeral system, long around, I guess, maybe the 5th, 6th century AD, somewhere in there, in the Semitic world, the Semitic alphabet served a dual purpose. They weren't just letters of the alphabet, they were also numerical values. So in the Greek alphabet, you had alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, digamma, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, Copa or Kappa, Rho, Sigma, Tau, Upsilon, Phi, Chi, Psi, Omega. Now, each of those, starting with Alpha, had a value of 1. Beta had a value of 2. Gamma of 3. Delta 4. Epsilon 5. And then when you got up to Theta, that was 9. Iota had the value of 10. Then you get to the Kappa. It had the value of 20. Lambda was 30. Mu was 40. So if you can actually go into like a Greek New Testament, and you will see the chapter headings. Chapter 13 will be chapter Iota Gamma. So Iota is 10, Gamma is 3, right? This is how it worked. Then it was a variant of the Hebrew system, a denary system. If you went through the whole system, it basically went from 1 to 10, then by tens, 10 to 100, so 10, 20, 30, 40. Then once you got to 100, it went up by a factor of 10 again, so you then had hundreds. So, for example, Rho had the value of 100, Sigma had the value of 200, Tau 300, Upsilon 400, Phi or Phi was 500, Chi 600, Psi 700, Omega 800, etc. Then when you look at the Hebrew, you had which was actually the older system. The Greek was undoubtedly partially derivative from the Hebrew. You had Aleph was 1, Bet was 2, Gimel was 3, Dalet 4, He 5, Vav 6, Zion 7, until you get up to the Yud, and that was 10. Then you go to the Kaf, was 20, Lamet was 30, Mem 40, Nun 50, until you got up to the Kof, which was 100, Resh was 200, Sheen was 300, Tau was 400, and so on. So this is how the system worked. And basically, you also had an Arabic system that paralleled this. And I haven't studied this, but I understand that the Sanskrit was also used numerically. But what that means is when you go to some of the ancient writings, you could look at these strings of symbols, not just as letters, but as numbers, you see. So from that perspective, then, a word would be composed of symbols, and those symbols would each have numerical values, and then you could sum those numerical values, and you would get a numerical value for the word as a whole. Or it could be a name, or it could be a phrase, right? So now, going back to this idea that I was talking about here, the grain of mustard seed, Synapios, you add those letters up, you get 1746. And 1746 was the number you get when you add the lunar number 1080 to the solar number 666. So then the question would become, well, and the skeptic and the reductionist will go, oh, well, that's just a coincidence.
Coincidence, right?
And if that was an isolated value, I would most likely agree with them. I would say that's a hell of an interesting coincidence, but yeah, that's all it is. It's a coincidence. If it was an isolated value, if it was an isolated example,
Right.
but I can assure you that it is not.
The other thing I noticed about the number 1746 is that the digits all add up to 18,
Which adds up to 9.
which those digits add up to 9. It's the same with all these processional numbers. We talk about that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really strange thing. I mean, it's
it is.
it's
Yeah.
divisible. So I guess that means it's divisible by 9, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so here's another example. If we go to the Hebrew, in Hebrew Kabbalah and Hebrew invocatory magic, you had the angel who was the spirit of the sun. And he went by the name of Sorath, right? Sorath. Sorath was spelled Samek, Omicron. Samek, Vau, Resh, Tau. Samek, Vau, Resh, Tau. Samek in Hebrew had the value of 60. It was the letter S. So you had 60 was the first letter. It was a 4-letter word, Sorath, right? Then you had the Vau, which had the value of 6. You had the Resh, which had the value of 200. And then you had the Tau, which had the value of 400. So you've got Tau 400 plus Resh 200, 600, Samek 60, Vau 6. So there you go. There's your 666 is the number of the angel who was the spirit of the sun in the ancient Hebrew Kabbalistic system. So these are just 2 isolated examples of hundreds and hundreds of such examples that we could actually discuss here.
That's fascinating. Why is there this whole evil connotation? When did that come about, or what?
Well,
is that a recent thing, or?
I think there's multiple reasons for that. For one, if you're looking like Satan, the whole idea of Satan, Satanan, where does that come from? Where does the idea of Lucifer come from? Where does the idea of where does this idea of evil come from? Who are the beast? Who is the beast? Was the beast Lucifer? Was the beast the devil? Was the beast Satan? Who was the who are the very other characters of evil? You can't just interchange them. They're not perfectly interchangeable. They represent, and here's how you have to think about it. To me, you have to consider that these represent natural forces. Now, suppose you are living up somewhere within the Arctic Circle, and you get to see the sun, a month or 2 every year, and consider your psychological orientation and your psychological relationship to the sun if you were living in the Arctic Circle. Now suppose you were stripped naked and dropped into the desert, the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
Now you'd have it wouldn't be the benevolent sun anymore, would it? It's the same damn force, isn't it?
Right.
But it's all in your perspective. It's all in your relationship. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is, of course, anytime you have a new dominant religion, the gods of the old religion become the demons and the devils. And so if you had an older religion that was a solar-oriented religion who was, anthropomorphizing the sun, now that becomes evil because we're trying to transfer this idea from your sun god to our sun god. So that's part of it. So if, to a rational person, and I hope most of the listeners of this will have their rational faculties intact enough that they can look at these things without the distortions of superstition, because there's so much superstition around this kind of material that's come down to us that's really hindered our ability to understand what it is. And to realize is that it actually does represent a very sophisticated understanding of the universe and forces of nature. But this understanding has been codified in ways that we've kind of lost the translatory keys to. So it's just like, modern science is all based on symbolism, isn't it?
Yes.
And ancient science is based on symbolism.
And
And
a different set of symbols, and we lost those symbol sets.
yes.
And all the modern scientists are like, those old symbols are evil.
Well, again, that's your superstition. That's people who have abrogated their rational faculties, their God-endowed power of reason, and have succumbed to superstition. And it's mostly just intellectual laziness that leads to that.
Yeah. So why is 666 the number of the sun? Like, is there a reason for that?
Well, that's a tough call. We would have to look in nature. The orbital speed of the Earth around the sun is 18.5 miles per second. Kyle, do your calculator. 18.5 miles per second times 3,600 seconds in an hour to translate that into miles per hour.
Times 3,600.
Number of seconds in an hour.
66,600
That's it.
miles per hour.
I can't remember if this is right, but something in my brain is telling me this is right. But the carbon atom, which all life is based on, has 6 neutrons, 6 protons, and 6 electrons.
I told you this.
Oh, okay. You probably told me that.
I did.
Okay.
I introduced you to that idea that the carbon atom, the basis of all living things, has the number 666 associated with, because 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. And there's a lot more to it than that. But
Redemption of the Beast, that's where I got that from. That's right.
Yeah, right. That's where I got that. Because that's that particular exposition on the role of carbon in nature, which people should read, because see what's happening now is carbon dioxide has become one of our modern demons.
Yes.
It's been demonized. And it's utterly essential for life. Without carbon dioxide, there's no photosynthesis. And without photosynthesis, we are effed big time.
That's right.
We are totally screwed.
Yeah.
But, there's so many misconceptions about carbon dioxide and its role in nature. It has the dual role. It's a greenhouse gas. It's also the key to photosynthesis. But its function as a greenhouse gas, and here's the point, it's very limited. In fact, carbon dioxide's thermal capture is pretty much all within the first 50 to 100 parts per million. And beyond that, the capture falls off logarithmically. It decays really rapidly. So the computer modelers, what they do is they have to introduce positive feedback amplification, because they know that carbon dioxide is already pretty much saturated, in the sense that the capture window that carbon dioxide operates in is 14 to 16 micrometers. Micrometers or microns, right? And what happens is, once that window is capturing all of the heat that it can capture, it ain't going to capture no more. See?
Right.
But what has to happen here is that in order to make carbon dioxide look like a demon that's threatening our existence on Earth, is it has to trigger this cascading effect, this cascading amplification through positive feedbacks. And this is done generally through water vapor. Water vapor now becomes the ally of carbon dioxide in the computer models. So the idea is that carbon dioxide ramps up the heat a little bit. The heat now causes more evapotranspiration, which introduces more water into the atmosphere. And of course, water vapor is far and away the dominant greenhouse gas. But it's also very active in that same 14 to 16 micron wavelength. See? So the thing is that it's like a ping pong. Okay, so a little bit of carbon dioxide added to the atmosphere, and it is a little bit. We're talking about since the Industrial Revolution began, we're talking about a little more than 100 parts per million. Per million. That ain't a whole lot. Okay. But the point is that 100 parts per million is now supposed to ramp up global temperature enough that more water vapor is now introduced into the atmosphere through evaporation. And that now causes further warming, which then causes more carbon dioxide theoretically to outgas from the oceans, so now it's back and forth. See?
Yeah.
The problem is this is a highly oversimplified variation on what really happens, because more water vapor produces clouds, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that clouds have a net cooling effect on the lower troposphere. So, there are plenty of legitimate questions to be asked about the claims being made of carbon dioxide induced demonic doomsday, right?
I mean, like you can easily see that enormous amounts of clouds raise the overall albedo of the planet, which means it's reflecting more light back out into space, which, I mean...
Yeah. And cooling. I mean, imagine you're out there in the hot sun, and then a cloud goes over the sun. You instantly can feel the cooling, can't you?
Yeah, you're like, it's much better.
Yeah. So if you have more clouds, generally, you're going to have more cooling. Not always, but the net effect, that's the important thing. So you see, the doomsday predictions all are based upon computer models, not so much the empirical data. In fact, the empirical data is constantly being adjusted to conform to the computer models, which is ass backwards.
Right. Wrong way, scientists.
Yeah, and people don't realize that. It's just frustrating to me that the media is just beating this thing to death. Every single weather extreme that was once considered completely normal a generation or two ago is now proof.
Yeah.
It's now proof. But you got a high pressure system that stalls over the Midwest for 4 or 5 days, like we did a while back, that created this, right? Well, that's a perfectly normal thing. It's a perfectly normal thing to have temperature inversions, to have high pressure zones that get stalled for a while, and then you have a heat wave. Heat waves are normal parts of the natural order. And yes, sometimes heat waves can be very hot, just like cold spells can be very cold. But when we look at the big picture of climate change and global change, nothing that has happened in our lifetimes is outside the bounds of what has been going on for thousands and millions of years.
Right. Not even close. If you look at the ice core data for what was going on before the Holocene, it was wobbling all over the place.
It was wobbling all over the place. Huge shifts of 10 degrees centigrade in a matter of a few years.
Yeah, that's
that really did happen.
Yeah.
And why did it happen? Well, we hadn't figured it out yet. So somebody comes to me and says, well, there's a consensus. The science is settled, No. We haven't even begun to understand the complex dynamical system of the global climate and all of the factors that are influencing it. And I will say right out that I think the weight of the evidence shows that the 20th century warming is solar related, much more so than carbon dioxide.
Does seem solar related.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, right from the beginning,
the decision. It's evil, man. 666. It's the sun.
Well, you see you see, in a way, I digressed into all this because it almost is sort of a modern incarnation of this kind of superstition. See, and so what has happened now is, the scientists, the infallible scientists, right? It's almost like Remember the infallibility of the Pope? Now
Yeah.
it's the infallibility of the IPCC scientists.
Right. They speak from authority. Yeah.
Right. And you don't question, oh, well, that Randall Carlson, he doesn't have any credentials. Well, what credentials do you need? I'll put it this way. I got obsessed and fascinated with the weather when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and have never ceased to be obsessively interested in climate and weather and all of that since then. So, you spend 40 or 50 years studying a subject, observing nature, you can come to some pretty valid conclusions.
Yeah.
And as Brad can testify, I've read thousands of scientific articles, of which hundreds of them deal directly with the question of global change. And so I know myself that, there's plenty of dissenting viewpoints out there.
Right.
And yeah, so
there is no consensus on this stuff. It's just
it's a manufactured consensus, because the idea at the very beginning, at the very outset, anybody has to do is go read the friggin' charter of the IPCC. It's go demonstrate that humans are causing climate change.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're doing. And guess what? Humans are causing climate change. Nobody's denying that. But the question is how much compared to the natural forces? The
Right.
assumption now is that it's all due to humans. And any person who would say that, I would then ask, well, so you're saying that whatever was driving climate change before the Industrial Revolution, all of those natural forces are now turned off and non-operational? Is that what you're actually saying?
Yeah. Or overwhelmed by human influence somehow.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then people from there say, well, and I've gotten this all the time. Well, we want to stop pollution. We don't want to, we want clean air and water. And I agree with you 100%, right? Yeah. Pollution is one thing, right? Carbon dioxide is not pollution.
Yeah.
In fact, all you got to do is, every time you exhale, you're breathing out carbon dioxide.
That's right.
It's plant food. It's not pollution.
Because of your articles, Redemption of the Beast, I actually started up a CO2 greenhouse project, and it went fantastic.
Oh, really? I don't know.
I sealed off a little area outside, got some grow lights, got some CO2 tanks, and got myself a CO2, a meter, a ppm meter, and kept it at 1200 ppms during the day when the grow lights were on, and those plants went crazy in there. They love it. Yeah,
they do. They love it. That's why we're in the midst of a greening of the earth. Right.
That's right. That's right.
And since I wrote The Redemption of the Beast, 2 or 3 years ago, there's been a lot more evidence that's come out confirming that, we're experiencing, the planet is undergoing a greening.
That's right.
And so
it's shrinking.
Yeah, deserts are shrinking. I remember when I made that comment on Joe Rogan a few years ago, somebody went on and said, well, everybody knows that the deserts are expanding. Everybody knows that. Like, it's just a given. Well, yeah, that's part of the religious dogma that you have accepted on faith. And so you believe that. But what does the actual evidence show us? You see?
Yeah. That's right.
So I didn't mean to necessarily get off on that, but
man, you got to have this is
some of the themes and the ideas. The idea that carbon dioxide has now been demonized.
Right. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast. We can't have a podcast without at least one good rant. So
okay.
This is it's like a rule. So
okay. So I'm in my element here. Then.
That's right. Randall Carlson rants are the best. That's what I got to say.
What did we used to call them? When we were on our trips and we'd be holed up in some sleazy hotel room or something, and I would do a Randall log.
There you go, Randall log. That's what it was.
A Randall log.
All right, so let's talk about what the other project we're working on. Since I think we're coming up here on time.
Yeah, I think so.
You guys need to get to bed, Brad.
I need to get to bed. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Brad's already asleep.
Brad's passed out. So what we've been doing, we actually were able to go. We went to the contacted the cabin 2019 up to Mesa Verde. We went to Mesa Verde. We were in Colorado. So we met each other and we hit it off. And now we've all sort of put this thing together, and we're doing an actual Randall Carlson podcast called Cosmographia. And so we've actually recorded how many? 5
episodes.
Yeah, so we've got 5 episodes in the can, people. That's what we're trying to get all the logistics together and get all that. But got to get the websites up and everything. But we've been moving ahead with actually recording the material, and it is great material. It will be both video and audio podcast, so it'll be available as an audio podcast everywhere you can get podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all that stuff. We're still working on that part of it, but we have the videos available. And I think Brad was saying that he'll be able to publish episode 1 on YouTube on the Cosmographia YouTube channel tomorrow. Is that right, Brad?
Yeah, we want to spin it out on 8/8.
That's right. There we go.
Tomorrow, and that's tomorrow.
August 8th. That's right. August 8th.
So that sounds like a good launch pad.
Right. So the YouTube version of the episode 1 of Cosmographia podcast with Randall Carlson and, of course, us and Brad will be available on YouTube tomorrow at the Cosmographia channel. That's where you can find it. And we're still working on getting the audio version, your regular RSS podcast feed set up, but that should be available within a week or two.
I know nothing about this.
Yeah,
I'm sound guy and also...
Initially, it's going to be on the Geocosmic Rex YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. We don't have a Cosmographia YouTube channel yet?
This is going to be the first thing there, yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so it'll be available on Geocosmic Rex, the YouTube channel, and it'll also show up. We'll have a Cosmographia YouTube channel too, and it'll be there.
That's right. It'll be there right also after.
Right. So we've been doing these podcasts basically using a video conferencing system. And so Randall's doing screen shares and we're recording the whole thing as video, also recording it as audio. And then Brad is taking the video and sort of sprucing them up a bit. And that's what he's going to publish. And we are taking the audio and sprucing that up a bit. And that's what we are going to publish as soon as we get the RSS feed stuff set up and lined out. So.
Yep. And we're all remote. So
yeah,
all in different places. This is it's been an interesting challenge to kind of get it all the kinks ironed out, and we're still working on it. And eventually, we're going to be looking into getting better and better software to
equipment.
And equipment to make it more streamlined, more better quality audio, better quality video. But we're going with what we got right now, and it's all about the content.
Right.
It's fantastic content. So
that's right. It's been fun, and there's been a lot of extraordinary content. Thank you, Randall.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bradley. Thank you, Bradley, for being such a great associate all these years. I don't know if I could have done this without you, Brad.
Yep, that's what I think.
So, you might be on the side of the road hitchhiking still.
I probably would be, yep. So when we do these podcasts, Cosmographia, I will just mention, it kind of covers a lot of the things like geology and astronomy, and we will be looking at archaeology and paleontology, and that will kind of be more of our focus here. We'll be looking at ancient cultures, of course. I'm going to be doing also some podcasts with my buddy Cameron Wiltshire, and that will be more of an emphasis on the geometry and the architecture and things, although there'll be some overlap,
right?
Of course, because you can't take this material and break it up into nice, neat categories. But Cameron's been putting together a series of podcasts we're going to do called Gnosis, and that will be a lot more of the kind of thing that we were talking about here tonight with the numbers, the Kabbalistic stuff, how it relates to art and architecture and that kind of thing, because it's going to be kind of going through the Sacred Geometry website.
Yeah.
So that's going to be coming, and that will be a nice complement to what we're going to do here.
Right.
And hopefully I can pull it all off and
Yeah.
make it all work, and still finish my book by the end of the year.
Yeah. When's the book coming out? Tell us about the moon.
The book.
Oh man. Well,
Get it
you
from
know
all
what
angles.
makes this nice is for me is I can sit here right in front of my computer in my office here, and I don't have to like spend 2 days driving to get somewhere, and
Yeah.
which of course I don't mind doing, but
Hell yeah, technology.
That's right.
Yeah. So that, speaking of that, the other thing in the works, since Randall, you and Brad have gone on many trips together and plan to do many trips in the future, we're going to be
Big
working
time.
on doing more trips,
Yeah.
similar to the Contact at the Cabin, that are organized, that people can join in, buy tickets or rooms to stay in with us and go and tour the sites with Randall and Brad and learn
Yeah.
the whole time, get to see some slideshows, all of that. So
Right.
that's also in the works.
That's definitely on the docket.
Yes.
We love to get out and show these places. It's incredible once you really see it from the ground in the field.
Right. And even do like new field work too, like not just go
Oh,
to
yeah.
places where you guys are familiar with, but also assist Randall and people can assist, and those will probably be smaller groups. You want a smaller group to manageable and get out into new areas that Randall hasn't looked at yet and actually do participate in the research.
Yeah, because one of the things I've realized is that in spite of all the places we have visited in the last, 22 years, all of those places, there's still more places that we haven't seen.
That's right.
Totally.
Damn universe. It's freaking big.
Yeah. So,
Start out with
yeah.
the planet.
and the way that we'd probably structure them is, like, for example, if we were going to do the great floodlands of the Pacific Northwest, we'd want to do at least a week. We'd probably want to do a smaller group.
Yeah.
Because, Contact at the Cabin in Colorado was 75 people. So that was, and plus it was rushed. I would prefer not to rush it. I would rather have a full week where people can really absorb. But then also leading up to the excursions, we could do, or we will be doing podcasts and giving people reading assignments.
Right.
So that anybody who is actually going to participate doesn't walk in completely green. They know where we're going, what our objectives are, what we're trying to accomplish. And of course, their own experience of it will be much more enriched the more they know about, what we're doing, what we're looking at. And, to learn the terminology, for example, so that when we're out in the field, I don't have to necessarily stop and explain to somebody the difference between a terminal moraine and a lateral moraine, or a diamict, or a cross-bedding, or a valley train, because they've already seen those. They've seen pictures of them. They've heard us talking about those, so they know what it is. Once we get out in the field, that way we can make,
much more progress.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. And so the one other thing we need to bring up here is that in conjunction with the new Cosmographia podcast with Randall and the websites we're building and everything, is also going to be a way to support Randall and his research, both to help us get better software and equipment for the podcast to make it higher quality, and in the end, really to help Randall get out in the field more often and do better research, get equipment for the research, and be able to pay to stay places and travel and everything like that, and cover expenses. So we're setting up, we've got a Patreon set up that is associated with the podcast. So that Patreon, anybody supporting that will be basically supporting the podcast and Randall and his research. And there will also be donation, like single donation abilities. All this will be on the website eventually. But so we're just basically, the point of this now is to announce that this is happening. And of course, the first episode will be published tomorrow on Geocosmic Rex, and hopefully also the Cosmographia channel.
And Cosmographia with a K.
With the K.
And you should mention, as Brad has commented, it really seems that since we've been doing this now and connecting with folks, talented folks and interested folks around that have a lot of different skills. It seems that a team is sort of emerging from this, that, our combined efforts could be very synergistic and really help to move this to the next level.
Yes,
absolutely. That's right.
Yeah. So
that's right. And
very exciting stuff.
That's right. And all the listeners of the podcast of the Cosmographia podcast, especially any supporters through the Patreon or PayPal, will be part of that team. Because like the support is very important for Randall to actually be able to get out more in the field and do more of what everyone wants him to do, which is find out crazy stuff to come back and tell us about on the podcast. Right. So this is the idea.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good to me, man.
2 hours later. Yeah. More podcast.
That's right. More podcasting. Come on.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for sticking around, especially you, Randall. That material was fantastic. So.
All right. Well, good. Yeah.
There'll
be a lot more of that. I mean, we'll cover some of that here for sure.
Yes.
But there will be a lot more of that kind of stuff over on the Gnosis podcast with Cameron.
Right.
Excellent. Sign me up.
That's right. So yeah, that's right. Check out the Gnosis podcast as well when that comes out. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. I guess be talking to you guys next Monday.
That's right.
Snake Bros.
Snakes.
Bradley.
Bradley.
All right. All right.
I'd see you, Randall. Awesome.
All right, Brad. So long.
All right. That was awesome.
That was amazing. Second podcast for Randall Carlson, but actually our third interview on this podcast, because the first podcast actually was 2 interviews.
That's
podcast with Randall Carlson on one show. Anyway, you guys can get a hold of us, brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com, the website, brothersoftheserpent.com, where you can find pretty much everything about us there. Comment there. Check out the encyclopedia, the Snake Bros Glossary, or the Snakelicon.
Yep. Talk to us on Twitter @Snake Bros with no vowels, SNKBRS. Share the shows. Donate to our pyramid scheme.
That's right. Also, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Brothers of the Serpent to donate there. We have a couple. Thank you, Laser Printer Jam, for upping your donations, buddy. Man, you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And also Robert.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah.
For
all the donations. Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and the reviews. I read some reviews earlier. Give us reviews on the iTunes, and I will read your comments if you put them in there, because we love them. Warms and fuzzies. So.
All right. Oh, it's time.
Cracking that tall boy.
All right. Thanks to History Shift for all the hard work, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah. All the videos.
Yeah.
So you can check us out on Brothers of the Serpent channel on YouTube because of all of History Shift's work. Brandon Ricks. You can follow him on Twitter @HistoryShift. Also, he's got a blog, historyshift.com, where he
the saga, man. What's the saga?
The saga. The history shifting saga of him finding dolmens and glacial erratics in northern Montana. I don't actually know that he's in northern Montana. He's in Montana. Big place.
Don't talk to me, man.
Also, Henry Hablack, awesome artist, sent us a bunch of stuff we got hanging up in the cube here. Check him out at @HHablack on Instagram. He's also got a website, hermetica.bigcartel.com, so check him out. Thanks to Henry for all the swag he sent us decorating the Tangent Cube.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
That's right. We love all you guys. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed this Randall Carlson episode. Good night, Adamu 666. Randall Carlson.
No way to delay that trouble coming every day. No way to delay that trouble coming every day. Well, you can cool it, you can heat it, because maybe I don't need it.